Hey guys, tonight we're diving into the dawn before dawns, the realm before any realm, where existence itself felt like it was just hitting the snooze button for eternity. Imagine yourself floating in a place where there is no floor, no ceiling, no sky, no comforting cup of tea, just a silent, gaping void. The kind that would make your anxiety attack politely excuse itself. This was chaos. Not chaos like your cluttered room or your ex's emotional stability, but chaos with a capital C. The yawning nothingness from which everything else reluctantly emerged. You probably won't survive this origin story, mostly because no one could survive a place where even place didn't exist yet. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And let me know down below where you're listening from, along with your local time, so I can see who else is floating in this void with us tonight. Now, dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. You drift silently in the timeless expanse. There is no warmth or cold, no movement or rest. You might think of chaos as the ultimate minimalist aesthetic. Black walls, black floors, black ceilings, and no scented candles to comfort your senses. Historians still argue whether Hesiod envisioned chaos as a deity with agency, or simply as an empty gap, an abyssal stage for the gods to strut upon later. Yet from this quiet emptiness, something profound stirs. You sense the vibration before you see anything, a pulse of potential, like the first tremble of your phone alarm vibrating you awake at 4 a.m. for no good reason. Slowly, Gaia emerges, Earth herself, wide-breasted and ever fertile. You can almost feel cool stone beneath your feet, smell the mineral tang of fresh soil, sense the gentle seismic lullaby humming through her bones. But she's still alone. Her green rolling hills pressed against an endless black ceiling. Not far above her rises Uranus, the sky, unfolding vast and starry, stretching to cover Gaia completely. They are both born from chaos without fuss or ceremony. There's no dramatic puff of smoke or heavenly choir, just existence appearing into non-existence like a stubborn weed sprouting between concrete slabs. You watch Uranus gaze down at Gaia, their silent yearning curling like fog at dawn. It's all rather intimate, despite neither having eyes nor lips nor arms to hold each other. Historians still argue whether Uranus was born from Gaia alone, or emerged simultaneously with her, like two sides of a cosmic pancake. Between them lies only a thin intimacy. Sky pressing so tightly against Earth that nothing can truly breathe or move in between. You might think of it like sleeping under a weighted blanket that's about 6,000 tons too heavy. Yet in this strange closeness blooms the earliest tension, the push-pull between expansion and contraction, freedom and restraint, that will define every birth, betrayal, and divine meltdown to come. And here's your quirky tidbit for tonight. The Greek word chaos originally meant gap or chasm, not disordered mess. So technically, your sock drawer isn't chaotic. It's just disgustingly cluttered. As Gaia settles, you notice her subtle shivers of creativity. Without Uranus's seeds yet, she alone births Pontus, the deep sea, a bottomless, briny expanse pooling upon her belly. You can almost hear its heavy hush lapping at invisible shores. Then comes Tartarus, the infernal abyss beneath even chaos itself, so dark and distant that not even your worst intrusive thoughts could survive there. Some legends say chaos and Tartarus were twin abysses, one above, one below, balancing existence between emptiness and dread. Next drifts in Eros, radiant god of desire, not the cherub with chubby cheeks and a love bow, but raw, primal attraction itself. His arrival is silent yet thunderous, like your heartbeat surging when you see that one person from afar, the gravity that compels forms to merge, atoms to bind, lovers to stumble into ill-advised situationships. Historians still argue whether Eros emerged directly from chaos or from Gaia and Uranus later. But his presence here feels inevitable. Without desire, nothing would cling together. There would be no gods, no humans, no tragic texts you regret at 9 a.m. Floating through this void, you feel the first breeze of coming stories. Gaia and Uranus have not yet mingled their powers. The Titans are not yet born, nor Cyclopes hammering out thunderbolts, nor the cruel betrayals that keep therapists in business to this day. For now, you simply drift above Gaia's patient expanse and under Uranus's silent canopy, cradled by the abyss, rocked by the promise of countless generational traumas to come. You settle into this moment of absolute quiet. Before creation's chaos became your personal chaos, before gods threw mountains like pebbles and fate began scribbling tragic footnotes under your name, breathe out into the darkness. The yawning void is not yet cruel. It is only empty. And from emptiness, you sense anything can awaken. You linger in the vast hush where Gaia reclines beneath Uranus's heavy, star-strewn embrace. Their union is not gentle, nor particularly consensual by modern standards. But in this ancient silence, the concept of consent has yet to be invented. Uranus presses down upon Gaia with such relentless closeness that her hills flatten and her valleys vanish, leaving no space between sky and earth for anything else to breathe or bloom. It is a suffocating intimacy, like trying to nap with a cast-iron pan resting squarely on your chest. You sense Gaia's quiet pain growing into quiet rage. Historians still argue whether Hesiod's version reflects a moral judgment or simply a poetic explanation for the primal tension of nature. Skies wait upon earth, seed pressing into soil, the ache of potential trapped by unyielding power. In this pressing darkness, Gaia becomes pregnant with Uranus's children. First come the Titans, giant primordial beings who will someday shake the cosmos with their ambitions and betrayals. You hear their names whispered across her body. Oceanus, the endless river encircling the world. Coeus, master of intellect and inquiry. Creus, the ram-headed pillar of the heavens. Hyperion, the brilliant father of sun, moon, and dawn. Iapetus, father of mortality and craft. Thea, radiance and precious metals. Rhea, future mother of Olympians. Themis, embodiment of divine law. Mnemosyne, memory itself. Phoebe, prophecy and oracular wisdom. And Tethys, nourishing freshwater streams. 11 names whispered like sibilant breezes rustling dry grass in moonlight. Then comes Cronus, last born, but fated to become first in infamy. Even now, in the quiet dark of gestation, you sense a sharp chill when his name curls through the void. Cronus, sly and cunning, with a future that will stain the cosmos in fear. Gaia feels it too, though a mother's love shields her from the dread for now. But the Titans are not her only offspring. Next, Gaia births 3 Cyclopes, each with a single blazing eye in the center of its forehead. Arges, Brontes, and Steropes flash, thunder, and lightning. Their glowing orbs pierce the darkness like ominous lanterns. Historians still argue whether Hesiod intended them as divine blacksmiths alone, or as cosmic embodiments of violent storm power. Either way, you probably wouldn't swipe right if you saw them on Tinder, even if their bios said, "We'll forge lightning bolts for free." Finally, she bears the 100-handers, also known as Hecatoncheires, Cottus, Briareus, and Gyges. each with 50 heads and 100 hands writhing from their bodies like nightmare coral. Imagine having enough hands to fold every piece of laundry in the house simultaneously, though they'd likely crush your wardrobe to dust by accident. These beings are raw, brutal force personified, their bodies trembling with barely contained violence, yet Uranus looks upon his children and feels not pride, but horror. He sees them as monstrous threats, grotesque reflections of his own unformed fears. Historians still argue whether his disgust stems from their appearance or from an instinctive dread of being overthrown, like every insecure father god in myth who hoards power like Black Friday shoppers hoard TVs. And so Uranus makes a choice that will stain him forever in Gaia's memory. Each time Gaia gives birth, Uranus forces the child back inside her, trapping them within the deep caverns of her body. You can almost feel her pain as her children claw at stone and root, muffled cries echoing through the world's molten core. This is a womb turned prison, an agony so vast even the Titan's mighty frames curl into helplessness. Here's a quirky tidbit to lull you deeper. The Greeks believed Uranus's name, Uranos, might derive from a Proto-Indo-European root meaning to cover, which, frankly, is an awfully boring etymology for the father of the cosmos. It's like naming the supreme sky god Blanket. You drift now within Gaia's smothered grief. Her children remain trapped beneath her skin, and her rage coalesces like magma pooling in darkness. She does not yet cry out, but you can feel the tectonic tightening of her resolve. Every mountain, every tremor beneath your drifting body pulses with her indignation. And from that righteous fury will come the plan, the secret rebellion that will split the sky from the earth and allow creation to finally exhale. For now, you float in the silence of unborn titans. Their thoughts swirl sluggishly through the caves of Gaia's flesh. Their dreams are unformed, their ambitions embryonic, but already. Cronus lies awake in the dark, eyes flickering with cunning glints. He is not like his siblings, where they mourn their entrapment. He calculates the cost of freedom. You breathe out slowly into the hush. Above you, Uranus shimmers in careless splendor. Beneath you, Gaia hums with a pain that is gathering into purpose, and within her, Cronus counts the beat of his mother's pulse, already plotting his father's downfall with a patience only eternity could teach. You remain nestled in Gaia's silent dark, feeling her sorrow ferment into resolve. Her trapped children shift restlessly within her stone-deep womb. Their massive limbs brush against cavern walls, scraping echoes through the molten tunnels. You hear their muffled breaths, as if an entire civilization were sighing beneath your feet. Among them, the Titans lie curled, their vast minds drifting through dreams of sunlight and sky. Oceanus imagines winding rivers that embrace the world. Hyperion dreams of firelight streaming across mountaintops. Theia dreams of gold and bright metals gleaming in torchlight. But every dream ends with the suffocating weight of Uranus pressing down from above, sealing their hopes beneath Gaia's aching body. Nearby, the Cyclopes cluster together in darkness. Their single blazing eyes flicker dimly, casting ghostly beams through the caves like miners' lanterns. Arges glows with white-hot brilliance. Brontes hums with deep rumbling thunder. Steropes crackles with electric tension. Historians still argue whether these Cyclopes were born as smiths or whether their later forging skills were learned under Zeus's patronage. For now, they remain silent watchers, their potential unspent. Deeper still stir the 100-handers. You feel their 100 restless hands scraping rock, clawing at roots, tapping silent rhythms of frustration. Cottus's fingers drum impatiently. Briareus flexes his arms with a slow creaking sound, like the shifting of tectonic plates. Gyges' hands twitch and stroke each other in endless loops. Their 50 heads murmur among themselves in low, grinding voices that tremble through Gaia's bones. You imagine each head dreaming a different dream. One of vengeance, one of freedom, one of feasting, one of sleep. A chorus of whispered cravings echoing through the abyss. Here's your quirky tidbit for this section. Later myths say Briareus, the mightiest hundred-hander, was once offered Poseidon's daughter as a bride in gratitude for his loyalty to Zeus. Imagine a wedding where the groom has 50 heads to kiss the bride simultaneously. Quite the photo session. Above all these silent children, Uranus stretches untroubled, his starry canopy pressed flush against Gaia's trembling hills. He knows they are down there, buried and powerless. His fear turns to cruel satisfaction each time he feels Gaia shudder beneath him. Each time she swells with another child only for him to force it back inside. Historians still argue whether this is a metaphor for ancient agrarian struggles, like plowing the earth and burying seed without yielding harvest until nature's fury intervenes. But beneath his careless tyranny, Cronus lies awake. He is the youngest Titan, born with a keen, cold mind. While his siblings mourn, Cronus calculates. While they dream, he plots. He listens to Gaia's groans and feels her secret thoughts vibrating through stone. He knows she is done submitting to Uranus's suffocating power. And Gaia, in her timeless agony, forms her plan. She shapes iron from her own rich veins, crafting a sickle with a curved blade sharp enough to slice star from sky. You almost hear its silent birth within her, the metallic tang of destiny forged in hidden darkness. She gathers her children in secret council. Her voice pulses through every cavern and tunnel within her vast body. The Titans shiver at her words. Cyclopes blink their eyes dim with caution. Hundred-handers flex their limbs in restless fear. Gaia speaks with patient rage, explaining her plan. Uranus must be overthrown for creation to breathe. But none of her children respond. None except Cronus. He rises, his massive form unfolding from the shadows, eyes glinting with cold resolve. He takes up the sickle, feeling its lethal curve against his palm. Its weight is nothing to him, though it carries the burden of cosmic betrayal. Historians still argue whether Cronus volunteered out of courage, ambition, or sheer resentment at Uranus's cruelty. Perhaps it was all three, a potent cocktail of motives distilled into one silent nod. You drift now, feeling Cronus's cold certainty radiate through the darkness. The other Titans recoil, not yet ready to defy their father. Even the Cyclopes and Hundred-handers remain silent, their monstrous forms trembling with fear of Uranus's power. Only Gaia's resolve and Cronus's ambition merge into an unbreakable blade. As Cronus waits for night to deepen, he sharpens the sickle against stone, testing its lethal edge. Sparks flicker briefly in the dark, illuminating his gaunt face, revealing eyes that gleam with a cunning too old for his youth. You sense the hush before an earthquake, the bated breath before a storm. Above, Uranus drifts unknowingly, his starry span serene, while beneath him, destiny coils like a snake in shadows. Here is your mainstream historical fact before sleep claims your thoughts. Hesiod's Theogony, where these myths are recorded, was composed around the 8th century BCE and remains one of the oldest surviving Greek texts detailing the genealogy of the gods. You float quietly now, hearing Gaia's whispered promise to Cronus, feeling his grip tighten around the blade. The void holds its breath with you, waiting for the sickle to rise, waiting for the first blood to stain the cosmos, waiting for betrayal to birth a new world. You drift in the silent darkness, feeling the sickle's cold gleam pulse like moonlight through the caverns of Gaia's body. Cronus crouches, clutching his lethal gift, his mind sharpened to a single purpose. Above him, Uranus spreads peacefully across the sky, blissfully ignorant that his last quiet evening has arrived. Gaia's whispers wrap around Cronus like a lullaby woven with iron threads. Her voice is low and measured, vibrating through stone and root. Wait for the darkest hour, my son. Wait until he descends to cover me again. Her words ripple through every tunnel, trembling through the Titan's silent forms. They lie still, too afraid to act, too heartsick to hope. Only Cronus shifts, rolling his broad shoulders, testing the sickle's grip with calloused fingers. You almost hear the dry scrape of his thumb across its blade, feeling his certainty settle like frost in the marrow of your bones. Historians still argue whether Gaia's sickle was forged of adamantine or unbreakable celestial iron, but either way, it gleams now with unspoken menace. Cronus watches its curved edge catch a flicker of torchlight cast by Brontes' blinking eye. The Cyclops turns away quickly, not wanting to see what is about to unfold. Night descends fully. Uranus lowers himself upon Gaia, pressing against her hills, pinning her forests and plains beneath his weight. Starry body glowing faintly like thin ice over a midnight river. His presence is silent, arrogant, eternal. You might imagine him sighing with self-satisfaction, convinced of his unchallenged dominion, like a manager who believes no one else understands the printer settings. Cronus waits until his father is closest, pressing Gaia down into trembling submission. Then, with a single silent step, he rises from the shadows. His massive form unfolds like a mountain waking from centuries of stillness. He lifts the sickle high above his head. Time slows. You hear Gaia's heartbeat in the roots. You hear Cronus's breath, ragged with fear and triumph. And then, in one swift, savage motion, he brings the sickle down. The blade slices through Uranus with such horrifying ease that the universe itself seems to scream. There is no thunder or lightning, only a sudden sharp crack that splits the sky open like brittle porcelain. Uranus's blood sprays out in silent plumes, curling through the night air like crimson smoke. You can almost feel its cold drizzle speckling your skin, a chilling reminder of betrayal's price. Historians still argue whether this myth encoded ancient rites of agricultural fertility, symbolizing the cutting of grain to release life from death. Cronus does not falter. His hands remain steady, his face locked in a fierce snarl of triumph. With one final wrenching cut, he severs Uranus completely, casting his father's severed, well, let's say, creative implement into the dark, rolling seas. You watch it arc through the silent void and vanish beneath black waves. It is from that foaming sea that Aphrodite, goddess of love and beauty, will later be born. Yes, your quirky tidbit for tonight is, the Greeks believed Aphrodite emerged from Uranus's severed genitals mixing with ocean foam. Romance at its absolute weirdest. Above, Uranus's agonized cry echoes into eternity, vibrating through every atom of your drifting soul. His body retreats, bleeding stardust across the newborn sky, leaving Gaia finally free to stretch and breathe without crushing pain. You feel her exhale, a slow sigh that trembles the Earth's mantle and ripples upward into your chest like distant thunder. As Uranus fades into the far reaches of night, he curses Cronus with his last ragged breath. You too will be overthrown by your own child. His words twist through the darkness like a poisoned wind, lodging deep in Cronus's bones, planting a fear that will shape every moment of his reign. Historians still argue whether this inherited paranoia reflects early Greek political anxieties about tyrants and usurpers. You just know it will become a generational trauma spiral worthy of any family WhatsApp group. The Titans watch in stunned silence as Cronus lowers the blood-slick sickle. None dare speak. The Cyclopes bow their heads. The 100-handers shift uneasily in the shadows, their 50 heads whispering quiet prayers. And Gaia gazes upon her son with a mixture of pride and dawning dread, realizing that in cutting down one tyrant, she has crowned another. You drift above them, feeling the cool sea breeze where Uranus once pressed suffocatingly close. The sky no longer clings to Earth. There is space now, empty space where winds can roam, mountains can rise, rivers can flow unbound to the ocean. You sense the quiet relief rippling through Gaia's body, but also the iron-hard certainty beneath it. She knows the wheel has only begun to turn. Cronus lifts his head to the scattered stars, dark blood drying on his hands, and you see the flicker of something feral in his eyes, the first taste of power swallowing whatever innocence remained. The cosmos lies silent, holding its breath around him, while beneath your drifting form, Gaia's pulse slows into a deep, weary rhythm. The deed is done, but the curse has already taken root. You drift now in a world forever changed, feeling the coolness of night air for the first time as Uranus's severed presence recedes beyond the farthest stars. Gaia stretches her aching body, sighing with relief as mountains rise from her shifting plains, forests unfurl from her skin, and rivers carve gentle scars across her surface, freed from Uranus's suffocating weight. The earth exhales in silent triumph. But as you float above this newborn land, you notice something strange shimmering along the coastline, where Uranus's severed flesh fell into the dark ocean. White foam bubbles and churns, glowing faintly in moonlight. From this foam rises a figure of impossible beauty, Aphrodite, goddess of love, desire, and eternal complications. Her hair drips with sea brine, her limbs gleam pale as dawn clouds, and her eyes open with a gaze so soft it could melt iron. Historians still argue whether Hesiod's Aphrodite is the same as Homer's, born from Zeus and Dian rather than foam. Either way, she emerges here tonight, birthed from an act of violent betrayal, floating on a scallop shell, carried ashore by playful breezes. You watch Aphrodite step onto the sand, each footfall leaving delicate blossoms in her wake. The flowers curl towards her warmth, breathing in the scent of roses and salt. She smiles, and the world sighs under her touch. Here is your quirky tidbit for tonight. Aphrodite's Roman counterpart, Venus, inspired the name of the planet Venus because of its bright and beautiful presence in the dawn and dusk sky. Though I suspect if you asked her about astronomy, she'd simply wink and blow you a kiss before sauntering off. Far inland, Cronus stands tall upon a high ridge, surveying the earth he has claimed. The other Titans gather around him in solemn awe. Oceanus murmurs greetings to the newborn rivers, while Hyperion lifts his gaze to the widening heavens, already dreaming of blazing suns. Thea and Rhea stand close, their eyes filled with uncertainty and flickering hope. Themis feels the pulse of new laws stirring beneath her feet. Mnemosyne closes her eyes, recording every moment in the silent vaults of memory. Historians still argue whether these Titans were worshipped directly in cults or served purely as mythic ancestors for later Olympian rituals. Either way, they stand here tonight, shadowed by Cronus's growing authority. Cronus says nothing to them. His mind hums with quiet calculation, his fingers tightening around the sickle's blood-rusted handle. He feels the echo of Uranus's dying curse coil cold around his heart. You too will be overthrown by your own child. The words gnaw at his newfound triumph, curdling his victory into paranoia. You watch his jaw clench, his eyes narrow. power, he realizes, is never truly safe. It is merely borrowed from the future's cruel patience. Above, the stars wheel slowly across the night, silent witnesses to cosmic betrayal. Aphrodite, now far away upon the seashore, begins weaving seashell necklaces from foam pearls, smiling at her own reflection in moonlit pools. Cronus does not see her. His gaze is turned inward, burrowing into the black tunnels of fear that his father's curse has carved through his thoughts. Here is your mainstream historical fact before sleep claims you deeper. The sickle that Cronus wielded became a powerful Greek agricultural symbol, representing harvest and reaping as well as violent overthrow. It reminds you that myth and farming have always been entwined, both dealing in birth, death, and everything that sprouts between. You drift lower, closer to Gaia's surface. Her forests whisper with wind-borne secrets. Her mountains hum with quiet power. Her rivers babble in newborn voices. And beneath it all runs a dark undercurrent of dread, pulsing outwards from Cronus's silent form. The other Titans begin building their new world, shaping time and light and memory with cautious wonder. But Cronus remains apart, his gaze fixed on the shadows gathering beyond the horizon of his mind. He buries Uranus's severed pieces deep within the earth or casts them into far seas, depending on which whispering myth you follow tonight. But no matter where he hides them, their presence remains, like a stain you cannot scrub from memory. Gaia's eyes close in silent sadness as she feels Cronus's triumph turn to iron tyranny in his chest. One tyrant has fallen, another has risen. You float above him, feeling the chill of his paranoia radiate upwards. There is no celebration in his heart, only calculation, only silent oaths that he will never suffer his father's fate, even if he must twist the laws of nature and betray love itself to avoid it. Above you, the stars glimmer cold and indifferent, while Aphrodite dances along the foaming shore, and Gaia hums a quiet lullaby to the unborn generations slumbering in her hidden deeps. You drift gently now into a darker current of the tale, gliding across the centuries like a silent moth along Cronus's shadow. Time settles into rhythm under his rule. The Titans spread out to shape the cosmos, guiding rivers into oceans, building the great vault of sky, weaving moonlight into calm seas. But for Cronus, the harmony tastes of ash. His father's curse rings endlessly in his mind. You too will be overthrown by your own child. Each morning, Cronus sits upon his cold stone throne, fingers drumming the sickle's blunt back edge. His gaze scans the horizon, looking for omens in sunrise streaks or cawing ravens perched on bare branches. His thoughts circle relentlessly. What if it happens today? What if it's already happening? Historians still argue whether Cronus ruled as a true king of golden peace or merely as a tyrant clinging to power. Hesiod sings of an age when mortals lived free from toil, unburdened by grief. Old age creeping in so gently it felt like drowsing into sleep. Yet even within this golden age, Cronus's fear grows sharper than Gaia's hidden sickle. For Rhea, his sister and queen, these years become a silent torment. She loves him with the resigned devotion of one who sees both greatness and rot in her partner's core. When first she carries his child, hope flares warm in her chest. But Cronus watches her belly swell with a tight, guarded smile. He remembers Uranus's curse with every flutter of life within her womb, when Rhea gives birth to Hestia, goddess of the hearth, keeper of warmth and gentle flame. Cronus greets the infant with trembling hands. He cradles her briefly, silent tears sliding down his cheeks, then opens his jaws wide and swallows her whole. You almost hear Rhea's scream echo through the cold marble halls. Historians still argue whether Cronus swallowed each child instantly or waited until they reached infancy. But either way, you feel Rhea's grief folding her chest inwards. Her milk dries against empty arms. Her lullabies catch in her throat. Cronus wipes his lips, ignoring the sick churn in his stomach, and returns to his throne with silent resolve. Next comes Demeter, bright goddess of grain and harvest, her laughter ringing like brass bells as she's born. Rhea pleads with Cronus, tears streaking her pale cheeks, but his eyes glaze with fear. He swallows Demeter in one shaking gulp. Then Hera is born, her wails filled with coming storms and regality. Cronus swallows her. Next Hades arrives, eyes black as river mud, shadows clinging to his newborn skin. Cronus swallows him. Then Poseidon, bearing the salty scent of oceans in his first cry. Cronus swallows him too. 5 children now curl within his belly, silent and trapped, their divine essence locked away. You drift alongside them for a moment in the suffocating dark. They do not die within him. Gods are eternal. They wait in restless, cramped silence, curled around each other like flickering embers pressed into damp ash. Here is your quirky tidbit for tonight. Later, mythographers joked that Cronus earned his name, which sounds like Chronos, time, because he devoured everything, just as time consumes all. Dark humor never changes. Rhea's grief blooms into rage and despair. She wanders alone among Gaia's forests, wailing into moss-pillowed hollows, clutching her empty womb. Gaia whispers to her gently, feeling her daughter's grief thrumming through roots and stone. "Patience," she murmurs. "All tyrants fall, even my beloved Cronus." Here is your mainstream historical fact. In many Greek cities, Cronus, or Kronos, was honored with midwinter festivals where masters served slaves for a day, symbolizing the fleeting inversion of power and his temporary golden reign before Zeus's rise. Rhea wipes her tears with trembling fingers. She realizes Gaia is right. The curse must unfold, but her heart hardens into quiet determination. When next she feels life spark within her, a new plan grows alongside the child. Cronus, meanwhile, sits upon his throne, stomach churning with the restless essence of 5 undying gods trapped within. He runs his hands across his belly sometimes, feeling Hera's flickering warmth, Poseidon's writhing tides, Hestia's faint glow, Demeter's gentle pulses, Hades's cold stillness. They shift beneath his ribs like trapped stars, lighting his paranoia into an unquenchable blaze. Each night, he dreams of their escape. Each dawn, he awakes gasping, eyes darting to Rhea's silent form curled beside him. He thinks he has won. He thinks he has outwitted fate, but far beyond his throne room, Gaia's roots whisper softly to Rhea, weaving a secret that will one day burst his tyrant's gut wide open and free the world from his silent, devouring reign. You float now alongside Rhea as she wanders through cool forest shadows, her pregnant belly swaying gently with each silent step. Birds sing above her in leafy canopies, unaware of the god's grief below. Her fingers trail moss-soft trunks. Her mind flickers with sorrow and determination. This time, she knows, she will not lose her child to Cronus's trembling, paranoid jaws. Historians still argue whether Rhea planned her rebellion alone, or if Gaia whispered the entire scheme into her dreams. Either way, her footsteps lead her to Crete's hidden glades, where sacred oaks grow thick and ancient roots coil in the cool soil like sleeping serpents. Here she kneels before Gaia's silent presence, pressing her forehead to the earth. Tears streak her cheeks as she begs her mother for help. The ground hums beneath her palms. Gaia's voice rises softly through moss and root. When your time comes, daughter, I will hide him from fate's devouring teeth. Her words vibrate in Rhea's bones, filling her with quiet steel. As birth approaches, Rhea journeys to a secret cave high upon Mount Dicta. You drift beside her as she climbs, feeling wind whip against your face, tasting sharp mountain air laced with thyme and cool stone. Each step pulses with her silent mantra. He will live. He will live. Finally, she reaches the cave mouth. Shadows yawn within, cool and silent. Inside, nymphs gather, eyes shining like damp emeralds in torchlight. The goat Amalthea bleats softly from the dark, her horns curling in regal spirals, milk heavy within her. The curettes, armored dancers, stand ready, their bronze shields slung across broad backs. Here is your quirky tidbit before sleep drags your eyelids heavier. These curettes would later become the sacred guardians of Zeus, dancing and clashing weapons to drown out his infant cries, so Cronus never knew he existed. Imagine an elite babysitting squad stomping around in full armor so loudly that it became ancient Crete's first sleep playlist. The birth comes swiftly in the flickering dark. Rhea bites down on a cloth to stifle her cries, sweat beading across her brow as pain tears through her body. With a final, silent gasp, she bears forth a wriggling, squalling baby boy. Zeus. His hair is damp with birth, dark curls clinging to his forehead, and his tiny fists clench with defiant strength even now. You watch as Rhea lifts him to her breast, tears slipping down her cheeks, hope burning painfully bright in her chest. Historians still argue whether Rhea wept tears of joy or dread at that moment, knowing Gaia's curse would unfurl through this child too. Either way, she swaddles him quickly, kissing his brow with trembling lips before placing him in Amalthea's waiting care. The goat nuzzles him gently, her milk warm and sweet, filling his belly with quiet contentment. The curettes begin their thundering dance, bronze spears rattling against shields, boots stamping into stone, drowning out his newborn wails with clashing, echoing music. Outside, dawn breaks soft and gold across the mountain peaks. Rhea descends the slopes, her eyes red and hollow with exhaustion. But in her arms, she cradles not Zeus, but a cunning deception, a stone swaddled in infant cloth. You drift beside her as she returns to Cronus's looming throne hall, her heart pounding like a trapped bird. Cronus sits hunched upon his throne, shadows pooling around his feet. His eyes flicker with cold hunger as Rhea kneels before him, offering the swaddled bundle with shaking arms. Without a word, he tears away the cloth and swallows the stone whole, gulping it down into his churning belly. You almost hear it clunk into place among the silent forms of his other devoured children. A faint grimace crosses his face. Stone is, after all, an acquired taste. But relief settles over him quickly. He leans back into his cold throne, eyes closing with a ragged exhale. Safe, he whispers to himself. Safe. Here is your mainstream historical fact before sleep claims your thoughts deeper. The cave on Mount Dicta, or sometimes Mount Ida, became a sacred pilgrimage site in Minoan and classical Greece, believed to house the exact spot where Zeus was raised, hidden from his father's devouring gaze. Rhea stands quietly before Cronus, bowing her head to hide the small, sharp smile curling at her lips. Within her chest, hope blooms into a secret fire. She turns away, leaving him on his throne, swallowed children squirming in his belly, and walks swiftly towards the future her son will one day claim with thunder and lightning. You drift alongside her down the silent stone corridors, feeling her pulse thrum with triumph. Far away, in a dark cave ringing with armored clatter, Zeus suckles in peace, warm against Amalthea's soft flank, eyes flickering with newborn dreams of storms yet to come. You drift across the crisp mountain winds, down into the cool, hidden cave, where Zeus lies nestled against Amalthea's warm, musky side. The goat's milk dribbles down his chin as his tiny mouth suckles greedily, filling his belly with thick sweetness. Her fur brushes against his cheek, soothing him back into drowsy, milk-drunk slumber. Around him, the curettes continue their thunderous dance, bronze shields clashing with such rhythmic fury that it almost becomes hypnotic. An ancient ASMR of clanging metal and stomping boots. Historians still argue whether these curetes were purely mythical guardians or reflected an actual armed priesthood of Crete charged with sacred dance rituals. Either way, you drift now within their relentless stomping circle, feeling each strike of spear against shield reverberate in your bones like deep, calming thunder. As months slip into years, Zeus grows swiftly, his divine essence quickening him beyond mortal infancy. His limbs strengthen, muscles coiling beneath olive gold skin. His curls darken and thicken, shadowing stormy blue eyes that flicker with restless mischief. He spends his days clambering across rough cavern stones, tiny feet leaving prints in damp earth, goat milk dribbling onto mossy floor as he gulps it greedily each morning. At night, he curls against Amalthea's warm belly, lulled to sleep by the rhythmic clatter of the curette's unending dance. Here is your quirky tidbit before sleep drags you deeper. Later, legends claimed Amalthea's horn broke off once, and Zeus transformed it into the cornucopia, the horn of plenty, an everlasting symbol of abundance and feasting. Imagine your pet goat dropping a horn, and you casually turning it into an infinite snack dispenser. Each dawn, Gaia's whispers curl through cave shadows, twining around Zeus's dreams. She hums lullabies of coming vengeance, of storms that will tear the old tyrant's reign apart. Sometimes, Zeus's tiny hands clench into fists as he sleeps, as if already grasping invisible lightning. Other times, he giggles softly in his dreams, and the cave walls shiver with a faint echo of thunder. Far away, upon his cold marble throne, Cronus sits bloated with silent dread. His stomach churns with 5 swallowed gods and 1 stone, each shifting slightly within his belly, their trapped divine essence prickling against his insides. At night, he dreams of children clawing up his throat, their voices hissing curses into his ears. He wakes gasping in darkness, sweat cold on his brow, the curse of Uranus still whispering in his mind like wind through bare winter branches. You too will be overthrown by your own child. Here is your mainstream historical fact for tonight. The name Zeus derives from the Proto-Indo-European dieu, meaning to shine, or sky, daylight. His name thus carries within it the blazing brightness of clear noon skies, the promise of thunder rolling down from heights unseen. As Zeus grows older, his thoughts sharpen. He listens to Gaia's whispers with quiet, intent eyes. He practices hurling small stones across the cave, imagining them as thunderbolts. The nymphs teach him how to climb rocky ledges silently, how to listen for distant hoofbeats and tremors in the earth. The curetes teach him the art of war through dance, leaping strikes, shield-bashing rhythm, spear-point pivots. Each day, his limbs grow stronger, his steps more certain, his gaze brighter with hidden storms. At twilight, Amalthea curls her warm body around him, chewing cud with heavy-lidded calm, while Zeus burrows into her fur, inhaling the grassy, musky scent that is his childhood comfort. Outside, winds whistle cold and clean against the cave mouth, carrying scents of thyme and goat droppings and faraway sea brine. The bronze clatter of the curetes never ceases, ringing endlessly like a heartbeat, keeping time with destiny's patient drum. Historians still argue whether Zeus spent a single childhood hidden here, or many decades growing to his full immortal power before returning to challenge Cronus. But here in the flickering lamplight, you watch him awaken each morning with a little more thunder behind his eyes, a little more steel coiled within his belly. He dreams sometimes of his siblings, though he does not yet know them by name. In his sleep, he sees silent shadows curled in darkness, hears muffled cries echoing through stone corridors. When he wakes, his chest aches with a yearning he cannot name, a longing to tear open the world's oldest prison, to lift from Gaia the heavy sorrow of her devoured children. And so each dawn, Zeus rises, stretches his growing limbs, lifts his gaze to the cave roof, and silently vows, "I will free them. I will tear his reign apart like a thunderstorm splitting a dead oak." You drift beside him as the first rays of morning pour through the cave mouth, brushing his curls with gold. Amalthea bleats softly. The curetes begin their dance anew, shields clashing in endless rhythm, and far away, Cronus awakes on his cold throne, swallowing down bile with a sigh of dread he does not yet understand. You drift forward through the cool shadows of Mount Dicte's hidden cave, watching Zeus rise each dawn taller and stronger, his gaze sharpening with quiet, storm-bound purpose. His childhood ends not with a celebration, but with a silent oath whispered into Amalthea's soft flank as he hugs her neck for the last time. He steps out into the chill dawn air, his curls whipped back by mountain winds. The curetes form a silent guard around him, bronze shields resting against their knees as they bow their helmed heads in respect. They know the time has come. Zeus breathes deeply, tasting thyme and cold stone and the salty promise of oceans far below. His chest rises with silent resolve. Historians still argue whether Zeus left Crete in secret or with great ritual farewells. But tonight you see him slip away at first light, his shadow stretching long behind him across dew-wet grass. He journeys down winding goat paths into the fertile plains, passing olive groves silvered by dawn. Farmers pause in their quiet chores to watch this broad-shouldered youth stride past with eyes like storm clouds and footsteps as silent as falling rain. He travels beyond hills and rivers, through thick forests where cicadas sing him onward, towards the echoing halls of Okeanos, where fate's threads twist in hidden currents. Here is your quirky tidbit before sleep claims you deeper. Some local Cretan myths claim Zeus was raised not only on goat milk, but on honey collected by sacred bees, tended by nymphs within secret hollow oaks. Imagine spoon-feeding a newborn thunder god with a golden honey dipper each morning. You drift alongside Zeus as he crosses a small river, feeling cool spray kiss your drifting face. He pauses, staring into his reflection rippling on the dark water. Broad brow, curling hair, eyes deep as thunderheads, lips set in a firm, quiet line. He sees no boyhood left in those eyes, only the flickering promise of storms. At last, he reaches the hidden grotto of Metis, daughter of Oceanus and Tethys, a goddess of cunning and wise counsel. Her eyes glimmer with silver ripples, like moonlight shifting across silent seas. She greets Zeus with a quiet smile, for she has been waiting. Gaia whispered to her long before dawn that this child would need her gifts to unseat tyranny. Historians still argue whether Metis was Zeus's first wife, or simply his trusted counselor in these early myths. Here tonight, you watch her lean close, whispering instructions with patient clarity. To free your siblings and fulfill your fate, you must move with cunning as well as force. She plucks herbs from her moss-soft grotto walls, crushing them between long, pale fingers. The scent of mint and bitter root rises into the cool cave air, mixing these with nectar in an obsidian cup. She brews a potion potent enough to loosen any stomach's stubborn grip. She hands it to Zeus, her silver gaze unwavering. Slip this into Cronus's drink. His belly will rebel. The children he devoured will return to the light. Here is your mainstream historical fact, before sleep pulls you closer. In classical art, Metis is often shown holding a small jug or cup, symbolizing her knowledge of potions, healing, and cunning arts. She embodies the principle that wisdom tempers power, a lesson that Zeus will carry and sometimes ignore throughout eternity. Zeus takes the cup, its dark surface glimmering with reflections of his fierce gaze. He thanks Metis with a nod, turns, and begins the long journey towards his father's cold stone halls. You drift beside him as he walks through golden fields, goat herds grazing in drowsy peace beneath olive trees, cicadas chanting their endless summer psalms. His grip tightens around the obsidian cup, thumb tracing its cool, curved rim. With each step, thunder gathers silently within his chest. Each breath tastes of salt and ozone and bitter resolve. Far ahead, Cronus sits upon his silent throne. Belly bloated with swallowed gods and false stone, dreams haunted by shadows clawing at his ribs. He does not yet sense his final dawn approaching. The halls stand silent around him, columns of pale marble lined with flickering oil lamps casting long, trembling shadows across cold flagstones. You drift forward, feeling your chest tighten with anticipation. Zeus's footsteps echo across empty courtyards, ringing softly beneath vaults of silent titans carved into high relief. The world holds its breath, waiting for thunder to tear the old tyrant's reign apart, like dry oak splintering beneath a sudden lightning strike. And so you float onward with him, deeper into shadowed halls, obsidian cup in hand, Gaia's promise ringing softly through the silent corridors of your drowsing mind. You drift alongside Zeus now as he crosses the threshold into Cronus's silent throne hall. The air inside is thick with cold lamp smoke and the stale scent of fear's lingering decay. Marble columns rise like petrified trees around him, their surfaces etched with fading reliefs of Uranus's starry reign and Gaia's fertile body. The echoes of Zeus's quiet footsteps ripple outward, disturbing a stillness that has sat heavy for countless ages. Cronus slumps upon his throne, eyes half closed, chin resting upon a fist. His bronze crown glints dully in lamplight, tarnished with neglect. His bloated belly rises and falls in shallow, restless breaths. Within him, your mind senses 5 silent gods curled in cramped darkness, their divine presence pressing against his ribs like restless thunder trapped beneath cracked earth. Historians still argue whether Cronus ruled from a mountain peak or a vast underground palace carved deep within Gaia's roots. Tonight, you see him here in these vast, echoing halls, shadows gathering in flickering pools at his feet. Zeus bows low, his curls spilling forward over his brow. Cronus peers at him blearily, eyes narrowing at the sight of this broad-shouldered youth whose presence tastes faintly of hidden storms. But his suspicion sinks beneath the heavy fog of arrogance. He waves Zeus closer with a trembling hand. "My throat is dry," Cronus croaks, voice rough as gravel dragged across stone. "Bring me wine." Zeus obeys with silent grace, his steps soft as drifting mist. He lifts a heavy silver jug, tipping its contents into an ornate golden cup. As he pours, he flicks his wrist, spilling Metis's dark potion into the swirling wine. The obsidian liquid blends invisibly with crimson, vanishing into its dark depths like night swallowing dusk. Here is your quirky tidbit before sleep tugs you deeper. Greek playwrights often used these scenes of poisoned cups to heighten audience suspense. Knowing nothing tightens a viewer's gut, quite like a silent betrayal blooming mid-toast. Zeus kneels before Cronus, offering the cup with lowered gaze. The old god grabs it greedily, sloshing wine across his trembling fingers. He gulps deep, throat bobbing with each swallow, dribbling flecks of dark liquid onto his bronze breastplate. A satisfied sigh escapes his cracked lips. His eyes drift shut in fleeting contentment, but then his chest clenches. His belly twists and convulses. You almost hear his organs writhe in protest as Metis's potion sears through his gut like wildfire. Cronus lurches forward with a strangled groan, clutching his swollen stomach, eyes wide with sudden, primal terror. Historians still argue whether the children emerged whole from his mouth or were reconstituted by divine power after regurgitation. Here tonight, you see Cronus double over, mouth yawning wide as a great retching shudder rolls through his vast frame. First comes Hestia, blazing with quiet hearth warmth, gasping as air kisses her skin for the first time since infancy. Then Demeter, curls crowned with sprouting wheat stalks, eyes wide with furious grief. Hera follows, storm-eyed and regal even as she collapses to her knees. Gulping the cold air with trembling lungs, Cronus moans again, his body convulsing. Out spills Hades, dark-eyed and silent, shadows curling around his bare limbs like faithful pets. Next emerges Poseidon, drenched in brine-scented divine essence, coughing up swallowed darkness with salty gags. Each sibling collapses to the cold marble floor, clutching each other in shaking relief, eyes blinking against flickering lamplight. Finally, Cronus slumps back upon his throne, trembling and gray-faced. His belly hangs slack and empty, echoing with silence for the first time in aeons. He lifts his bloodshot eyes to Zeus, seeing not a servant, but a storm god risen in full fury. Here is your mainstream historical fact before sleep carries you deeper. The Greeks celebrated these myths during winter solstice festivals, reenacting the return of life and light from darkness, echoing the gods' liberation from Cronus's devouring reign. Zeus steps forward, curling his hand into a fist. Thunder rumbles quietly within his chest, vibrating through the cold flagstones. His siblings gather behind him, leaning upon each other for strength, their gazes fixed upon their liberator with silent, trembling hope. Cronus's lips part as if to beg forgiveness or curse his son's name, but no words come. The hall grows silent, thick with the scent of wine, sweat, and ancient bile. You drift above it all, feeling Gaia's silent tears ripple through the roots beneath the marble. Her grief mingled with fierce relief. The children of Cronus stand reunited at last, their divine essence flickering through the hall like dawn's first fractured rays. They breathe together, drawing in the world their father tried to keep from them. And behind Zeus's calm gaze burns a storm that will soon break across the heavens, tearing tyranny apart with lightning's silent, ruthless beauty. You drift in silent awe as the newly freed gods stand trembling upon the cold marble floor, their bodies shaking with the effort of breathing air after eons trapped in darkness. Hestia clutches her chest, feeling her heart pound like a newborn drum. Demeter runs trembling fingers through her hair, pulling wheat stalks free as tears streak down her cheeks. Hera steadies herself with a regal composure that flickers beneath the raw relief in her eyes. Hades lifts his shadowed gaze, black irises gleaming with silent calculation. Poseidon tilts his head back, inhaling deeply, tasting salt and thunder in the still air. Behind them, Zeus stands tall, curls shadowing his eyes, his chest flickering with silent lightning. The hall seems to shrink around his gathering storm. Cronus slumps upon his throne, chest heaving, mouth slack with exhaustion and dread. He feels his father's curse coil once more around his mind, tighter than ever before. You too will be overthrown by your own child. Historians still argue whether Cronus accepted his fate in this moment or resolved to fight until the bitter end. Tonight, you see him slump lower in resignation as the truth carves hollow spaces into his ancient bones. Here is your quirky tidbit before sleep claims your senses deeper. In some Orphic fragments, Cronus is imprisoned not in Tartarus, but in a cave of dreams at the edges of time. Forever lulled by honey-sweet song into a sleep he cannot escape. Imagine nodding off mid-regicide and never quite waking up again. Zeus steps forward, his bare feet slapping softly against cold marble. His siblings gather around him in a loose crescent, their gazes locked upon him with cautious hope. For a moment, silence hums between them like a plucked string. Then Hera clears her throat softly and murmurs, "What now, brother?" Zeus lifts his gaze to the vaulted ceiling, studying faded frescoes of Uranus embracing Gaia, Titans hewing mountains, Cronus devouring swaddled infants. His eyes narrow with resolve. "Now," he says quietly, thunder rippling through each syllable. "We take back the cosmos." Historians still argue whether the Titanomachy, the war between Olympians and Titans, lasted 10 years or stretched beyond mortal comprehension. Each battle echoing for centuries across the world's newborn ridges and plains. Tonight, you watch it begin with a single step. Zeus turns away from Cronus's sagging form and strides across the silent hall, his siblings following like shadows drawn to firelight. They move as one, barefoot gods slipping through the echoing corridors, past stone reliefs depicting old tyrannies, towards the dawn blazing beyond arched windows. Outside, the world hums with Gaia's quiet approval. Winds sweep across marble courtyards, rattling olive branches. Far below, mortals pause in their simple dawn tasks, glancing skyward with sudden, inexplicable hope flickering in their chests. Here is your mainstream historical fact before sleep drags you closer to dreams. The Titanomachy myths were first recorded in structured form by Hesiod around the 7th century BCE, though oral versions likely stretched back centuries earlier, shaping how Greeks understood divine justice, succession, and cosmic balance. The gods gather upon a high marble balcony, dawn winds whipping their hair back from weary, beautiful faces. Zeus lifts his arm, fist curling tight. For the first time, the sky answers him. Dark clouds roll in from the horizon, lightning flickering silent and hungry in their depths. His siblings watch with widening eyes as thunder growls softly across the waking world. You drift beside them, feeling static brush against your drifting form like cool fingertips tapping your skin. Far below, mortals pause mid-prayer, mid-bread kneading, mid-plow furrow, looking up at these silent figures silhouetted against storm-lit dawn. They do not yet know these are their new gods. They only feel a trembling certainty that the old order has ended. Behind them, Cronus slumps further down his throne, eyes half closed. He feels his father's curse complete its circle, tightening around his weary heart until it beats in time with Gaia's sad, enduring sorrow. His reign has ended not in thunderous battle, but in quiet, retching agony, and the silent dignity of children rising against their devouring father. Zeus breathes deeply, lightning flickering from his fingertips. Hera rests a hand upon his shoulder. Poseidon's eyes gleam with salt and secrets. Hades' shadow stretches long behind them. Demeter presses wheat stalks into her palm until they draw faint green blood. Hestia closes her eyes, feeling hearth fires flicker to life across the waking world. Together, they turn from Cronus' silent hall towards the coming storm. Their footsteps echo in steady rhythm, each step carrying the silent promise that tyranny's reign has ended, and thunder will soon claim the world. You drift now above the gathering storm, watching Zeus and his siblings descend from Cronus' cold throne hall into the waking world below. Dawn glows pale and thin upon mountain ridges, streaking the sky with silent promise. Their bare feet touch the earth for the first time in unison, each footfall rippling through Gaia's soil with the quiet certainty of destiny taking root. Zeus lifts his gaze to the horizon, where thunderclouds bloom dark and heavy, veined with flickering veins of silent lightning. His siblings cluster around him, Hera standing tall at his left, her gaze calm and commanding, Poseidon at his right, salt-scented curls whipping in the rising winds, Hades standing slightly apart, shadow coiling around his ankles in restless whispers. Demeter kneels, pressing her palm to the earth, feeling grain roots hum with her touch. Hestia clasps her hands over her heart, warmth flickering faintly around her quiet smile. Here is your quirky tidbit before sleep curls tighter around your drifting mind. In some local myths, Hera was the eldest of Cronus' children, devoured first and thus regurgitated last, a hidden cosmic pun on the cyclical nature of birth and death. Imagine being both firstborn and youngest depending on your family's last meal. Zeus breathes deeply, feeling thunder pool in his chest, pressing against his ribs like caged lightning. "We will need allies," he says quietly, voice vibrating with low, distant thunder. The Titans will not surrender willingly. Historians still argue whether Zeus strategized each battle of the Titanomachy or acted as a blunt storm force against Cronus' disciplined armies. Tonight, you see him pause with silent wisdom, scanning the horizon for the hidden forces that will tip the balance of war. Gaia whispers to him upon the dawn winds, guiding his thoughts down into the churning dark beneath her fertile skin. "Seek out the Cyclopes." Her voice hums, soft as root water and strong as earthquake rumbles. They forged the sickle for Cronus. They will forge your weapons too. You drift alongside Zeus and his siblings as they journey down shadowed gullies into the deep, echoing caverns of Tartarus, where the Cyclopes labor beneath walls of black basalt. The air here tastes of sulfur and iron. Sparks flare in the darkness like fireflies trapped in volcanic glass. The Cyclopes turn towards Zeus, single eyes glowing white-hot in the gloom. Brontes, Steropes, and Arges stand massive and scarred, bronze-skinned and soot-streaked, their hammer blows ringing through your chest like deep temple gongs. Zeus steps forward, curls haloed in flickering forge light, and bows his head respectfully. "I free you from Cronus' chains," he says simply, lightning crackling faintly from his fingertips in emphasis. The Cyclopes roar their approval, voices booming like colliding granite slabs. Historians still argue whether these primordial smiths were imprisoned purely out of Cronus's paranoia, or to weaken Gaia's allies in his conquest of Uranus. Either way, they rise now, stretching iron-thick limbs with groaning satisfaction. Here is your mainstream historical fact for tonight. The Cyclops were not only metalworkers in myth, but also represented the ancient Mycenaean and early Greek smithing guilds, feared and respected for their secretive mastery of fire and stone. In gratitude, the Cyclops gift Zeus the thunderbolt, forged from storm clouds and primordial lightning, its grip cold and buzzing with coiled fury. They gift Poseidon the trident, three-pronged and humming with the silent voices of every ocean current. To Hades, they grant the helm of darkness, a crown woven from night's deepest shadows, rendering him unseen to mortal and god alike. You drift closer, feeling the faint electric buzz as Zeus curls his fingers around his thunderbolt for the first time. Lightning coils up his forearm, crackling soft and cold across his bronze-bright skin. Poseidon tests his trident with a sharp thrust, and somewhere far away, the oceans shudder in silent anticipation. Hades lowers his helm over shadow-black curls, and instantly the flickering forge light bends away from him, his form dimming to a silent, drifting absence. The siblings stand together in the Cyclopean forge glow, weapons gleaming with silent promises of war. The Cyclops bow low, iron hammers striking basalt anvils in rhythmic farewell. Sparks rise around you like firelit snowfall as Gaia's quiet voice murmurs once more. Now, my children, return to the light and claim what is yours. They turn as one, storm god, sea king, shadow lord, queen of the skies, lady of harvest, keeper of hearth, ascending through cavern darkness towards the dawning world above. You drift with them, feeling each step pulse with coiled thunder, brine, shadow, and silent warmth. The war to overthrow tyranny has begun. The world holds its breath as the Olympians rise into a sky blooming gold beyond the cave mouth, lightning flickering silently along Zeus's fingertips. You drift alongside Zeus and his siblings as they emerge from the dark forges of Tartarus into the waking world above. The dawn greets them with a hush, pale gold spreading across mountain ridges and olive-strewn valleys. For a moment, all is silent, but for the quiet hum of Gaia's breath beneath their feet and the flickering sizzle of lightning along Zeus's clenched fist. The Olympians stand upon a rocky bluff, their weapons gleaming softly in the growing light. Zeus curls his fingers around his thunderbolt, feeling it hum with impatient storms. Poseidon leans upon his trident, the sea's brine rising faintly from his skin. Hades adjusts his helm of darkness, its obsidian surface swallowing the sunrise with silent, devouring grace. Hera, Demeter, and Hestia stand behind them, eyes flickering with quiet resolve. Historians still argue whether the Titanomachy began with an official declaration of war or an unplanned ambush. Tonight, you see it ignite in silence, a single look between Zeus and Poseidon before they nod and turn towards Mount Othrys, where Cronus and his Titan siblings gather in uneasy anticipation. Here is your quirky tidbit before sleep drags your senses deeper. In some rustic Thessalian myths, farmers believed thunderstorms were Zeus rehearsing his battle strikes against Cronus long after the war ended. Every bolt a practice swing to keep his power sharp. The Olympians descend into the plains below, where armies of Titans loom beneath bronze standards carved with ancient sigils. The air thrums with tension. You drift among the ranks of towering Titans, Cuus with his stern, starless eyes, Crius clutching a spear taller than pine trees, Hyperion, the Sunborn, radiating harsh daylight even here in the shadowed dawn. Zeus steps forward. He lifts his thunderbolt high. Lightning curls around his wrist, crackling down the shaft with cold brilliance. His voice rolls across the plains, deep and calm with quiet threat. Your reign ends today. Historians still argue whether the Titans laughed at his proclamation or felt their courage falter. Tonight, you watch their eyes narrow with wary hate as Cronus strides to the front of their ranks. His frame is stooped now, belly slack from retching forth his devoured children. But his gaze burns with bitter, choking rage. He lifts Gaia's sickle in a trembling fist and growls, "Come, boy, show your father your strength." Here is your mainstream historical fact for tonight. The Titanomachy was often depicted upon ancient pottery, with Zeus hurling stylized lightning bolts shaped like spearheads, while Titans wielded serpent-entwined clubs and jagged sickles inherited from Uranus's bloodline. With no further warning, battle erupts. You drift above as thunder roars across the plains. Zeus hurls lightning bolt after lightning bolt, their blinding brilliance crashing into Titan shields, sending tremors through the earth itself. Poseidon lunges forward, trident slicing through bronze breastplates, the ground beneath him shuddering with oceanic fury. Hades slips unseen among Titan ranks, his helm cloaking him in flickering absence. Where he passes, Titans fall, clutching their throats, eyes wide with dread as shadows bloom across their minds. Behind them, Hera calls out commands with regal precision, her voice ringing clear above the chaos. Demeter raises her arms, and thorny vines burst from churned earth, tangling Titan ankles in grasping green coils. Hestia stands quietly amidst the battle, flames flickering around her palms, forming walls of heat and light to shield her siblings. You drift among clashing spears, thunder strikes, and roars that shake the dawn itself. The Titans fight with desperate rage, each blow strong enough to shatter mountainsides. Coeus hurls boulders the size of village halls. Hyperion blazes with such fierce daylight that Olympian warriors shield their eyes, stumbling blindly until Zeus's lightning cracks through the glare and blinds Hyperion's brilliance. Here is your open scholarly debate phrase to carry into sleep. Historians still argue whether the Titanomachy represents a cosmic memory of actual tribal conquest or purely mythic allegory for generational succession. Perhaps, as Gaia herself might whisper, it is both. The battle rages on for years, or seconds, or lifetimes. Time stretches thin beneath Gaia's trembling crust. You drift between lightning strikes and silent shadows, feeling thunder vibrate in your bones, tasting brine and ash and the faint iron tang of immortal blood. The cries of titans and gods alike echo across the plains, fading into the quiet dawn winds that carry them away toward sleep's deeper shadows. Finally, you watch as Zeus raises his thunderbolt high one final time, lightning crackling so bright it splits your drifting vision into shards of silent brilliance. The Titans falter, shields dropping, eyes wide with dread and exhausted resignation. Cronus lifts his sickle with trembling defiance, but thunder crashes down upon him, folding his knees beneath his ancient weight. The ground quakes with a final, silent shudder. The reign of Titans ends as quietly as it began, with the slow exhale of Gaia's weary relief and the flickering hum of lightning dying upon dawn's pale horizon. You drift through the settling dust and flickering ozone scent left by Zeus's final thunderbolt. The battlefield lies silent now, littered with fallen Titans groaning softly beneath dawn's pale glow. Their bronze weapons lie scattered like broken constellations across churned earth. The Olympians stand amid it all, chests heaving, hair tangled with sweat. dust, and faint streaks of immortal blood that glimmer silver in the dim light. Zeus steps forward, his thunderbolts glow fading to a faint pulse within his grip. His gaze sweeps across the defeated titans with calm, quiet judgment. Poseidon stands beside him, trident planted firmly in the bloodied soil, brine dripping from its prongs. Hades emerges from shadow, his helm tucked under one arm, eyes dark and unreadable. Hera approaches, her regal posture unshaken, curls tumbling around her shoulders as she surveys the silent victory. Demeter kneels to brush her palms over torn earth, coaxing fresh green shoots from blood-soaked soil. Hestia clasps her hands before her chest, a faint hearth glow flickering in her weary smile. Historians still argue whether the Titans begged for mercy or maintained stoic silence as Zeus pronounced their sentence. Tonight, you watch them kneel in trembling rows, eyes downcast, shoulders slumped beneath the quiet finality of their defeat. Here is your quirky tidbit before sleep drags your thoughts deeper. Ancient vase painters often depicted the bound Titans wearing surprisingly chic, patterned chitons, as if even cosmic prisoners deserved impeccable wardrobe design. Zeus lifts his gaze to the looming slopes of Mount Othrys, their shadow sprawling long across the broken battlefield. His voice rolls out low and calm, carrying the weight of silent thunder. You sought to chain the world beneath your cruelty, he says. Now you will learn the weight of your own darkness. He lifts his thunderbolt high, lightning crackling silently along its shaft. The earth shudders beneath your drifting form as the ground splits open into a vast chasm, black and bottomless, the yawning mouth of Tartarus itself. Cold sulfur gusts rise from its depths, carrying faint whispers of formless things that shift far below the roots of Gaia. Historians still argue whether Tartarus is a true underworld realm or a metaphysical prison existing beyond mortal comprehension. Tonight, you see it as a silent, endless pit coiled within Gaia's deepest bones, humming with ancient, restless grief. Poseidon raises his trident, and stone pillars rise from the chasm's edges, each carved with silent runes binding the Titans to their prison. Hades lifts his helm, shadows curling from it like drifting ink, weaving chains of darkness that loop around each Titan's limbs, necks, and torsos, locking them with unbreakable silence. The defeated gods groan, their voices echoing down into the fathomless dark as they are cast one by one into Tartarus's unending gloom. Here is your mainstream historical fact before sleep enfolds you. Hesiod's Theogony describes Tartarus as existing as far beneath the earth as the earth is beneath the sky, a poetic expression of absolute imprisonment beyond time, light, and redemption. Cronus is the last to fall. He kneels before Zeus, shoulders slumped, eyes dim and hollow with defeat. For a moment, father and son lock gazes in silent finality. Cronus's lips twitch as if to speak, but no words come, only a low, broken sigh that echoes through the emptying battlefield like the last exhale of a dying storm. Zeus lifts his thunderbolt one final time. Lightning flickers along its shaft, and with a silent nod, he casts Cronus down into Tartarus, shadows swallowing him whole with a single, soundless gulp. The chasm seals itself with a low rumble, stone grinding back into place until only faint fissures remain, glowing softly with molten light before fading into silent, unbroken rock. The wind rises around you, carrying away the last whispers of defeated Titans down the slopes toward silent, sleeping seas. Hera steps to Zeus's side, resting a hand upon his shoulder. Poseidon and Hades stand beside him, silent brothers bound by war's harsh covenant. Demeter brushes her dirt-streaked cheeks with trembling fingers, fresh barley sprouting where her tears fall. Hestia closes her eyes, feeling hearth warmth flicker back into the world. Here is your open scholarly debate phrase for tonight's dreams. Historians still argue whether Zeus punished the Titans out of necessity for cosmic order, or as vengeance to cleanse Uranus's ancient blood curse from Gaia's grieving soil. You drift above them all as dawn rises fully. Light spilling gold across scorched fields, melted bronze, shattered spears, and silent footprints pressed deep into cooling earth. The first crows circle above, black wings slicing morning's hush, their silent shadows dancing across the victorious gods' faces. Zeus exhales, lightning flickering softly around his temples, and lifts his gaze towards Mount Olympus in the far north, its peaks crowned with drifting cloud palaces. Quiet thunder hums in your chest as you drift onward with him, towards the throne he will soon claim, and the silent, unbreakable rule he must forge from storms, justice, and the enduring sorrow of all fathers devoured by their sons. You drift alongside Zeus and his siblings as they stand upon the silent battlefield, dawn's light brushing their weary faces with faint, forgiving warmth. The Titans are gone, sealed beneath Gaia's deepest bones within Tartarus's unending dark. Only faint fissures remain where the chasm closed, glowing briefly with molten sorrow before fading into silent stone. Zeus turns away from the scarred earth, thunderbolt flickering softly in his grip. His gaze lifts northwards, towards the jagged peaks of Mount Olympus, rising high into the cloud-swept heavens. The air around him crackles with quiet promise, like static before a gentle rain. Behind him, Poseidon rests his trident upon his broad shoulder, eyes already distant with the pull of silent oceans. Hades stands slightly apart, helm of darkness tucked beneath one arm, his dark gaze fixed upon unseen shadows, curling beneath the waking world. Historians still argue whether the Olympians claimed Olympus by force or ascended in silent procession, welcomed by Gaia's quiet approval. Tonight, you watch them walk with steady steps, each footfall pressing lightly into dew-soft grass, their path lined with drifting morning mist. Here is your quirky tidbit before sleep claims your final waking thoughts. Ancient Greeks believed the gods' laughter was so beautiful it could shatter mortal bones with sheer joy. Imagine giggling yourself into hospital just from hearing Zeus chuckle. They climb the slopes of Olympus in a silent procession. Hera walks beside Zeus, her regal bearing unshaken despite exhaustion, shadowing her storm-bright eyes. Demeter trails a hand through waving grass, leaving sprouting barley and wheat in her wake. Hestia walks with quiet dignity, a faint glow of hearth warmth flickering around her, carrying the silent promise of home wherever she steps. Poseidon's footsteps leave briny puddles upon the rocky path, each small pool swirling with microcosmic tides. Hades moves noiselessly among them, shadows curling around his ankles, his eyes cast downwards, already contemplating the silent underworld that will soon thrum beneath his dark crown. Here is your mainstream historical fact for tonight's journey's end. Mount Olympus is the highest peak in Greece, standing at 2,917 meters, often shrouded in mists so dense that ancient pilgrims believed they concealed the gods' palaces from mortal eyes. At last, they reach the summit. Dawn breaks fully around them, sun spilling across cloud palaces sculpted from drifting vapors. Marble columns shimmer into view, flickering with silent lightning. Bronze gates tower before them, carved with spiraling reliefs of stars, seas, and silent shadows. The Olympians pause upon the threshold. The world spread out beneath their feet like a silent, waiting canvas. Zeus steps forward first. His thunderbolt crackles faintly in the dawn air as he crosses into Olympus, the bronze gates swinging open with silent, patient grace. Hera follows, curls tumbling around her proud face. Poseidon strides beside her, trident glinting with brine-soaked light. Demeter carries the scent of fresh earth within her steps. Hestia's quiet glow flickers warm against the cold marble floors. Hades brings with him the silent certainty of shadows, his dark gaze swallowing all flickering fears. Here is your open scholarly debate phrase before sleep fades your drifting thoughts. Historians still argue whether the Theogony's divine succession myth reflects actual Mycenaean palace coups or purely spiritual meditations on order rising from chaos. The Olympians gather upon their new thrones carved from pale veined marble. Zeus sits at the center, thunderbolt resting across his lap. His siblings arrange themselves in a crescent of silent authority around him, each bearing their gifts, powers, and quiet scars. They breathe as one, and the world shivers in grateful relief. Below, the winds carry whispers of new prayers. Mortals pause mid-field work and mid-bread kneading, glancing skyward with quiet hope flickering in their chests. The reign of devouring tyrants has ended. A new order has risen, built not upon swallowing children, but upon storms, oceans, shadows, harvest, hearth, and silent, enduring justice. You drift above them all, watching dawn spill across the world in gold and silver, feeling Gaia's quiet sigh of relief curl through root and stone. Thunder rumbles softly within your drifting chest. The gods sit upon Olympus now, their reign just beginning, woven from stormlight, brine, shadows, grain, hearth fire, and silent, unbreakable resolve. And now, as dawn's pale light fades gently from your drifting mind, you feel your breath slow, each exhale stretching longer and softer. The stormlight flickers away into quiet darkness. The scent of olive wood smoke, goat milk, and wet moss lingers around you, warm and comforting like childhood memories tucked beneath silent quilts. Your limbs grow heavier with each passing moment, sinking deeper into the softness beneath you, your chest rising and falling in silent, calming rhythm. Imagine yourself high upon Olympus's quiet slopes, clouds drifting around you in cool, misty curls. The distant rumble of thunder fades into the hush of dawn, winds sweeping across sleeping fields below. The gods sit silent upon their thrones, eyes half closed with the weight of dreams. Their quiet presence settles your thoughts, drawing away the scattered fragments of the day until only peaceful darkness remains. With each slow inhale, you draw in cool mountain air tinged with thyme and faint brine. With each exhale, you release every remaining tension from your chest, your shoulders, your fingertips. You drift further now, thoughts dissolving like soft mist curling away beneath dawn's warming glow. Soon, your mind will slip beyond Olympus's silent halls, down into dark and gentle dreams where no lightning flickers, no shadows threaten, and no devouring tyrants await. Only the quiet promise of a new day, calm seas, warm hearths, and silent fields waiting beneath drifting dawn clouds. Rest well, weary traveler. May the gods watch over your slumber with silent, patient eyes. Sleep deeply and wake restored, your spirit quiet as morning mist upon the olive groves.